ingredients that we use in our raised bed mix a little bit more, and why we use them. We're going to start with what represents the majority of the mix, and then we're going to work down in scale. So let's talk about the pine bark. So the pine fines or the pine bark, this is a waste product of the pine bark industry, or the pine industry as a whole, which is very predominant in the Southeast. So this is very reliable, it's accessible, it's in abundance. The company that we work with, they have relationships with lumber companies and a couple of other large facilities. Those facilities inbound pine trees, they debark those trees, and then they mill those trees into dimensional lumber or whatever product that they're using. The company that we do business with, they go in, they run the bark through a tub grinder, a big giant grinder, and they haul it off to their facility. They age it, go through their protocols and processes, and put it through a final screen, and this is what we get. We like the pine bark because unlike hardwood, it actually takes a long time for it to break down, and that's because of the resins and the nature of pine bark. It has a low pH, so it could go anywhere from an average, like 5.5 to like a 6 in pH. We like that lower pH in our mixes, and it promotes drainage. So it's a good fluffy product that really promotes percolation and air pockets and those sorts of things. So the negative thing about it is that because it's pine and it doesn't break down fast, the reason it doesn't break down fast is because it does not promote a lot of biology in the realm of decomposers. So it's not really good feed for decomposing bacteria, fungi, and other critters. So, but that makes up the majority of our raised bed mix. It is just a fantastic product. It's up there with peat moss and coconut coir and all these other products that we can use for horticulture. The next product is going to be our composted coffee grounds. So what we do is that we inbound coffee grounds in to a company that makes a cold brew concentrate product. We bring that coffee in. We mix it with hardwood mulch that we get that's already gone through a composting cycle. The reason that we add the hardwood to it is because the hardwood is actually alkaline, so it's the opposite of the pine bark. We're adding something that's a little bit higher in pH. This stuff is going to be an average of 7.5 in pH. But again, it's got fluffiness to it. But more importantly, it brings in a lot of white rot fungi and a lot of the other type of fungi that we're looking to bring in. So we bring this material in, mix it in with the coffee grounds. We let that go through a composting cycle, our protocol, and then that is our compost. This is the main compost that we sell. We sell this as pure compost. We recommend it for top dressing only, or tilling in, or disking in. We do not recommend planting plants 100% in this compost. It's too dense. You're not going to have the water percolation. You're going to have compaction, which is why we add it to the raised bed mix. Why we add it to the pine bark. It's because these two products work very well together. On average, this is about 70% of the mix. On average, this is about 30% of the overall mix. That's the most compost that we would want to add to it. Otherwise, it's going to be too dense, it's going to be too heavy, and you're going to have compaction and percolation issues. So the benefit of the compost is the coffee grounds do have about an average NPK ratio. You got 2 pounds of nitrogen in it per 100 pounds of coffee. So you've got a nutrient in it. But more importantly, you got a huge food source for the kind of microorganisms you're looking for. Everything from slime mold, yes, to worms. Our raised bed mix will bring in your earthworms. They will literally go through and eat the compost in the raised bed mix and convert it to castings in place. It feeds white rot fungi, protozoa, all kinds of fantastic stuff. It's the entire soil food web. That's what really ties our raised bed mix together, is our compost. So it's got actually a neutral pH to it. Coffee grounds, even though a lot of people think coffee grounds has an acidic pH to it, it is definitely more neutral than acidic. Adding the hardwood to it, then we've got something that is that is a pretty neutral pH, and that can kind of balance out maybe the harshness of the lower pH of the pine. So the crab shell is pretty cool. I did leave some of these chunky pieces in here so y'all can see what we're dealing with. It comes in much big, it's whole crab shell when we get it bring in. These are some larger mature claws that did not break down in the process, but as you can see, it is fairly brittle, for a big claw like that off a blue crab. But all this other stuff just flakes right up. And so the reason that we like the the crab shell compost is that it's got nutrient benefit to it. It's got biological benefit to it. But the main thing that we're looking for in this product is going to be the calcium that plants can take up in the form of chitin. So it's got a lot of chitin and other things in it that are kind of calcium based that we want to see. Fungi and other things, they rely upon calcium to build up, their body and other things. So again, this adds to the whole soil food web of everything that's going on. So yes, it's a nutrient, it's an NPK ratio, aspect of it, but more importantly, we're after that calcium and chitin that the oyster shell brings in. We do add a dried molasses product to it. The reason that we add molasses to it is to feed the microbes that are in the coffee compost, that are in the crab shell compost, and that are in the worm castings. So yes, molasses has an NPK ratio to it. It does have a nutrient profile to it, but the main reason that we add a little bit to it is to actually just help feed some of the microbes that we're throwing into the whole mix. So it's an easily digestible carbohydrate for them. That's why we add it to them. It's got some trace minerals to it and a couple of other things, but the reason that we're going after it is a food supply. Next is our worm castings. The worm castings, which is worm manure from our red wiggler worms, they're fed actually a compost-based bedding. It's very much almost identical to this compost, but the worms eat this material, they poop out this material. This is going to be full of a unique set of microbes that are going to be hanging out in the gut of the worm, and so it's a different microbial set than what we would get out of our coffee compost or the crab shell compost. And so that's why we put it in there. There's a lot of hormones in there, phytohormones and different things that the worms produce to help the root zone of the plant. That's why we add it in there. Yes, it has an NPK ratio to it, like everything else has an NPK ratio to it, but we're putting the worm castings in there for this specific set of worm castings. And then we have the biochar. So biochar, yes, it is, essentially at the end of the day, it's ash. It's produced at a certain temperature, but it's like putting ash in your compost or ash in the soil, or any other benefits from, a burning char type profile. And so because it is positively charged, it will actually help interact on a chemistry aspect with all these other things. So again, the reason that we're adding the biochar in there is to actually help promote the microbial activity, increase surface area for the biology, and also have a beneficial chemical aspect to the mix that we're putting in. So all of these different ingredients are going to have, are going to have different aspects to make up our entire raised bed mix. We've put a lot of thought into it. We've geeked out quite a bit, but we're also using local ingredients that we can access and that we can be part of rerouting material away from landfill and into your garden so you can actually grow something with it or using your landscaping or whatever. So these are all the main ingredients. So having put all these ingredients in the raised bed mix, we get a lot of questions of, do we need fertilizer, add anything else? I do recommending side dress fertilizing with our raised bed mix. It's because when our customers pick up the raised bed mix from us, we don't know necessarily if they're growing roses or growing Swiss chard or growing tomatoes or what they're actually using it for. So we encourage people to add a crop specific fertilizer, whatever the fertilizer may be. It could be an Osmocote product, or it could be a chicken litter product, or it could be a mix of blood meal, bone meal, and green sand. Whatever it is that you like to use as a fertilizer, we do recommend you dialing in the NPK ratio of the fertilizer that you're getting and side dressing your crop or your planting with it. Our raised bed mix is a fantastic platform. It's got the biology in it that's going to help the plants uptake the fertilizers and nutrients that you add. But it's not a, plug and play for all plants across the board. It's a good, average, solid, reliable platform for you to grow. And you as the gardener, you can decide on what season you're in, what you're growing, what the plant cycle is that you're trying to promote, and then you can actually decide dress, fertilize. We help people with that. I am a horticulturalist. We've been doing this for 20 years. We're more than happy to give you a little tech support with our raised bed mix and make recommendations based upon what you're doing. That's no problem. The second thing that we recommend that you do is mulch. That could be pine needles, leaves that you rake up, whatever you have on hand, because the pine bark has such a great percolation. If we go through a couple weeks of no rain, then you're going to be looking at having to water your garden. That's very important. So drip irrigation works very well with our raised bed mix. We highly recommend that. And then the third thing is watering. So we're talking about side dress fertilization. We're talking about mulching, and then we're talking about watering. Like any other good gardening practice, the plants need water to grow. So those are three things that you really need to do with our raised bed mix. And then once you've already put in the raised bed mix, then you can come back and you can add more compost to it or top dress with more of our raised bed mix. So that's what we've got. If y'all have any questions, concerns, comments, feel free to put them in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer them and kind of give you our take on whatever it is that you may be bringing up. If you would like to purchase raised bed mix or compost from us, give us a call.